Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David. I'm the red reindeer, and this is
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm the green reindeer.
and David and Laura. So we're here today to take you through Christmas by numbers in Stata. So I've got my Christmas shirt on. Laura's got her green dress on today. So we're all Christmassy today. So happy Christmas to everyone. Hope you're enjoying Stata, and let's do some numbers with Stata. Now we're going to change our background so you can't see these here. Our agenda for today, we're going to have a look at the Stata Christmas scheme. So this is a scheme especially designed to allow you to show stuff Christmassy in Stata. And then we'll have a look at a graph or a set of graphs on how to measure the temperature of the different state or the different capital cities in Australia on Christmas Day and how we've made that look Christmassy. Then we'll have a look at a graph using a Christmas scheme showing snowflakes, how to actually show snowflakes in a Stata graph. Then we'll have a look at a Christmas graphic, and probably you may have seen one of the ones from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So we're going to show you theirs, and we'll show you how to create one of those in Stata. And then we'll close out with how to do a Christmas tree using functions in Stata. All right. Laura, this looks like a pretty standard graph. Is this a Christmas graph?
This is Stata's default graph scheme. So if you never do anything with schemes or graphs, don't touch anything, then this is what it will look like when you run a scatter graph. It's much nicer than what it used to be, what the default used to be. It's nice and clean and crisp, but it is a bit boring.
Yeah, it is. And we've done this. This is using the scheme ST color, and that's what we're going to change when we go and show some different schemes. So, all right, let's have a look at. So you can just use the default Stata scheme. That's totally okay. And Stata have improved that. They've made that look so much nicer. But you can make your own scheme, which you can apply to an individual graph or to all the graphs in your session or to all your graphs permanently. But you can always change it permanently to something else.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what it looks like.
Yeah, this is my Christmas scheme. Bright colors. You've got red and a green background, a bit Christmassy. And then bauble colors is what I picked out. Those so bright colors.
Now, when I use this scheme, I can apply it applies to all different types of graphs as well. And we did have some of these in here, but to keep this webinar on time, we cut some of those out. But they're all the different colors that you could do. So you can apply this scheme to all different types of graphs.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at how we can do that.
There's a couple of different ways that you can apply schemes. So the first is entirely through the menus. If you're used to just running your graphs totally through the menus, this time I'm doing a histogram of the rep78 variable, and I'm going to go along to the overall tab, which will be in all of these graph things, and I'm just going to change the scheme to Merry Christmas, which is the label that I gave for my Christmas scheme. And you can see there you go, green kind of foresty background with red.
And that looks a nice Christmas histogram of cars.
Now you can also apply after you've run the graph. So if you go into the graph editor after you've run a graph, just edit, apply scheme. And again, Merry Christmas is the label I've given mine. And there we go. The scheme's applied. You can also apply it within the graph command using the scheme option, which you can see there, or you can set the scheme with the scheme name. And then if you put set scheme, the name of the scheme, and then comma permanently, that will set it for all future instances of Stata, whereas set scheme Christmas without the permanently means just while I have Stata open, but when I close, it's going to go back to my default, which is my pink scheme that I use.
Right. Okay. So that's schemes. And schemes are really important in Stata.
Yes. They're especially useful if you have like public graphs that you're putting into a academic journal and they have a particular way that they want those graphs to appear. You can make a scheme that does all the things that they want, and then whenever you're going to send something in to be published in that particular paper, you can just apply the scheme to all your graphs, and it just makes it easy.
And it's all done for you.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, we said we'd discuss Christmas Day weather.
Yes, I was just curious. Obviously it's start of summer, pretty much 1 month in on Christmas Day. And so you'd expect it to be quite warm, but it can be quite cool as well.
And for example, here in Canberra today, it's only
16 degrees.
16 degrees.
Yeah, it's quite cold.
Yeah.
And we had hail yesterday.
Yes.
It was rather exciting.
But here's a Christmas plot of the temperature on Christmas Day and we've used a box plot.
Yeah, so this is the temperature of Christmas Day, every Christmas Day from 1965 to 2022. And so you can see the range over that time. It looks pretty standard. You can see that WA and Queensland are like the top ones there, as expected. The Northern Territory doesn't go up as high, so it sits between about, say, 25 degrees and 35 degrees every Christmas Day. It's pretty standard. It doesn't get really cold, but it doesn't get super hot either. So this is Darwin, because these are all the capital cities that I'm using the temperatures from. So Darwin's probably quite a nice place to be around Christmas, because you get a pretty even temperature. It doesn't go super hot or super cold. It's just nice and in the middle.
And we can see that by the size of this box and its whiskers, and then but it does have a lower anomaly here.
Yeah, so there were a couple of outliers, a couple of days where it was particularly cold. And this is for Darwin. It's still above 25 degrees, which I would say is quite pleasant. But then you've got Hobart has a much bigger range. Hobart gets the coldest out of everywhere, which you would expect because it is in Tasmania, right? But it can go all the way up the top as well. The top outlier there is about 35, 36 degrees. So
Wow. So
that's quite warm, but it's not normal for Hobart. Normal for Hobart is below 30.
Right. So quite a bit of variation there between the different states.
Yeah.
But it looks Christmassy.
Yes, they're all the different coloured baubles on a Christmas tree background is the theme that I went with.
Yeah. And this just shows how you can do something different and make it look different in Stata.
Mm.
So then what have you got here, Laura? We've got a table.
Yes, since most of this is graphs, just because graphs are more fun and colourful, I thought I should throw in a table. This is using Stata's new table and collect commands to make a nice little table. It's got the minimum temperature for each capital city for the years between 1965 and 2022, and then the maximum temperature as well, and then the year that temperature occurred for each capital city. So you can see Brisbane at the top has the highest maximum temperature. It beats out Perth, which is a bit surprising. But that high maximum temperature was in 1972, which is quite a while ago, whereas its minimum temperature, the lowest temperature it's ever gotten to, happened in 2010, which is actually quite recent in comparison, whereas WA is the other way around. So WA has definitely been getting hotter over time, so Perth specifically getting hotter over time, and you can see their lowest temperature is actually all the way back in 1970, and their hottest year was only 2 years ago. So WA is kind of going the opposite way to Queensland there with those temperatures.
So that's our data there, and then let's have a look at some particular Christmas Day temperatures. So this one's Christmas Day 1970. I don't actually remember this day. I was around, but I don't remember Christmas Day 1970. And the hottest was South Australia that year.
Yep, so Adelaide wins out there. WA was actually quite cold. It was the third coldest.
And how have you done this one, Laura? This is using
This is a choropleth map. So I pulled down the Esri, what are called Esri shape files. And so you need a database file and a shape file. And Stata has a command called SP shape to the number 2 DTA, which will convert those two shapefiles to an overall data set and then an attached shapefile data set. So you load your overall data set, it's attached to the shapefile data set, and that allows you to draw maps and apply colors like I've done here. So I picked cold to hot. I made a little
scale. Yeah.
And so because there's 8 states, I just did 8 colors. So we're colored coldest to hottest. It's not necessarily telling you what the temperatures actually were. But yeah, in this one, sort of Queensland was kind of in the middle.
So just on this choropleth map, so all of these individual dots that's drawn in, and this is all drawn in Stata.
Yeah, it's all drawn in Stata. All the little islands and stuff are probably actually many. They're not so much dots as lines. I'm sure if you zoomed in, you would see like a drawing of the little islands.
Right.
But because I could just, if I wanted to, I could get rid of all the other states and just map Queensland. And so then I would be zooming in on Queensland.
Right. And then you can get this data for a whole bunch of different places as well.
Yeah. So the temperature data I got from the Bureau of Meteorology, and the map data just comes from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They've got all sorts of maps. You can go right down to mapping suburbs within a state if you really want to.
We must try that. Yeah. So Christmas Day 1993.
Yep. But it was quite cold for me. Not as cold as South Australia. It was the coldest. Adelaide was the coldest out of everywhere in 1993. WA, the Northern Territory, and Queensland were quite warm, which is what you'd normally expect.
Yeah. And then we have Christmas Day, the year 2000.
Yeah, this is the turn of the millennium, the first year of a new century, or the last year of an old one, depending on your viewpoint. But again, WA is quite warm. Queensland is just below WA this time. And the ACT is quite cool again, but you can see it's sort of surrounded by New South Wales or Sydney, which was a lot warmer. This is last year. So New South Wales or Sydney was quite cold compared to Canberra, which is actually not that far away from Sydney, and yet we had a much higher temperature than Sydney did. Location usually has a bit to do with this. The ACT is surrounded by mountains, so when it gets hot here, it kind of just hangs around. Whereas Sydney is on the water, so that can help cool things down.
But then, what are we expecting for this year?
Yep. So these are the predicted temperatures. Based on the 19th of December is when I pulled out the predicted temperatures. So Hobart's going to be the coldest. That's pretty much what you'd expect. Darwin is predicted to be hotter than Perth or Brisbane, which is quite interesting. And Sydney is just a bit warmer than Adelaide. Melbourne's going to be quite cold this year.
Yeah. All right. Now then, what you've done here is a GIF.
This is a GIF.
So how did you do this, Laura?
So I had a data set. It was a panel data set of the maximum temperature on Christmas Day from 1965 to 2022, which was last year. And so I created a nice little loop. And so I just looped through each individual year, creating the graph, exporting the graph and saving it. And then once I had all those individual graphs, I used Python within Stata to stick all the images together into a moving graphic, which is what we can see here. And you can see the temperatures move around quite a bit. If you watch closely, you'll find that WA gets more orange and red as the years pass on. So Perth's been getting warmer on Christmas Day specifically.
Now, Laura, you've done this one where the colors are changing, but you could actually have a time series one gradually moving along, or something like anything that's moving, or anything that you want to make move. You can do that using this method.
Yes, so I have somewhere out there is a tech tip that I wrote on making a GIF, and for that one I used Stata has a US life expectancy data set that's just an example data set that comes with Stata, and so I did a graph that showed life expectancy over time as it goes up.
Right.
which you would expect, because I believe it starts at about 1900, and you can see it drop sharply around 1915 to 1918. So that was World War One. And then it just steadily continues to rise.
And then this is how you've done that.
Yes. So Australia, in terms of making a choropleth map, is a little bit tricky. In that sometimes it will work, and sometimes the ACT gets coloured in with New South Wales colours. And that's just to do with because it's drawing each individual state by itself. If it draws the ACT first and then draws New South Wales on top of it, the ACT just gets totally coloured in and taken over by New South Wales. And that's just, it's quite unique to Australia, where we're rare in that we have a territory entirely encompassed within another state. It doesn't happen very much. It's quite it's very Australian. So you have to kind of be a bit tricky to get the ACT to draw and color in over the top. And so I just add, I took the ACT, the whole shapefile data set, and I removed all the other states except the ACT, and I then saved that as ACT-boundaries.dta. And so I can add that in as a polygon, and the polygon will be drawn on top of the first part of the map. So that means the ACT is always drawn last for my map. And then I have to do a little bit of a trick. So you can see I've got, these are my 8 colors that color in from cold all the way to hot. And so I've set them up as local macros 1 to 8, and then each year I summarize. So state equals 3, so the ACT is recorded as state number 3 in this data set. So I'm saying for each of these years, summarize the seq, which is the order. So I've sorted them in terms of temperature. So that's what this bit does here. So I sort them by year and then temperature, and then by year I generate a sequence variable. And so what this is doing is ordering coldest to hottest, 1 to 8, which matches my 1 to 8 on my colors. And then for each year, I'm summarizing that, so I find out what my number is. And so I'm grabbing that number because it's only one number, so the min and the max will be the same. And then I'm just adding a T to the front of it so that it will mirror one of these. So one of these is being put into this local macro. And so I can then refer to it all the way down here. I've got my polygon, I've put in the AC boundaries data set, and then I'm putting in the color as this local macro. So it's just a bit more tricky than running a standard choropleth map because the ACT is so special. But then the way that the loop works, you run your map, and then on the temperature, T is time, so I'm saying TI, so it's going to loop through 1965 to 2022, which is my timing. I've got my 8 colors, which are just these 8 colors here. If I was being special about it, I could have actually just put T1 and T2 and T3, etc. in here, but I didn't. I put the actual colors. CL number is just choropleth number, so I'm doing 8 colors, so I've said do 8 colors. Title, Christmas Day, and then the year. And then I'm ordering the legend backwards, just so that the colors will show correctly. And this is just so that the colors and not the numbers will show, since the numbers change each year.
Okay. So it's actually fairly complex to do this. Well, not really. It's
not. It's much more complicated. If I didn't have to worry about the ACT, I wouldn't need this, and wouldn't need any of this. I could just run the GR map by itself in the 4 values loop. That was all I would need. So the ACT just makes it a bit more complicated.
Right.
But after that, you export. I'm exporting each graph, making sure to say that they're the exact same width and height, so that they'll all work in a GIF, because otherwise sometimes it'll export them in a different size and it's a bit annoying.
Right.
And then the one last thing that I will point out is that around my 4 values loop, so before the 4 values loop starts, I've got set graphics off. And then when it finishes, I've got set graphics on. So set graphics off means that the graph will not be rendered on screen. It'll be rendered and saved as an image file, but it won't be popped up in the graph window for me to see in Stata, because I'm making a whole bunch of these. It's like, what is that, 60 years worth of worth of graphs almost. And so that's a lot of graphs, and I don't need to see them because I'm going to turn them into a moving image anyway. So when I turn this off, it just makes these graphs a lot faster to generate because it's not having to put them up on screen. So it's a lot quicker. But you just have to remember to turn it on at the end, or the next time you run a graph, you'll be like, it didn't draw. Why didn't it draw?
Because you've got graphics off.
Yeah.
So a few important tips there, and a few things that we've actually used throughout all of our webinars. We're showing you how to use the 4 values, so doing loops. So you can go back and watch our loops webinar. We're using macros. Go back and have a look at that macros webinar. We're using some of the special graphics commands. Have a look at our graphics webinars.
Yeah. And the set graphics off is in our settings webinar.
Right. So 4 different webinars, and then you do some Python to put it all back together again.
Yes. So this is just really easy. I'm happy to share this with you. If you hate coding or don't want to learn Python or can't be bothered, there are websites out there where you can just upload all the images and it will make a GIF for you and you just download it. So you're perfectly welcome to do that. I do it like this just because I like to do everything in Stata and I know how to code in Python, so it makes it really easy. But you don't have to do this if you go, you can just Google making a GIF from still images and there'll be websites that you can just upload the images and it'll make it for you.
But this is a fairly simple approach again, but we're using Python here to do a for loop to go and grab those images and create them into a GIF.
Yeah, and the only reason is that Stata is obviously not a video software, so it's not designed to make GIFs. But the fact that you can leverage Python libraries in order to do this anyway within Stata is really useful.
Yeah. All right. Now, in graphics in Stata, you can also use fonts in your graphs. So you can actually change the fonts.
Yes. And you can add whatever font you like, including what are called dingbats fonts, which are fonts that instead of letters, they actually have pictures, little pictograms assigned to each letter instead of just actual letters.
Right. This is something that I showed off at my presentation at the University of Otago a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that you can kind of use this. The first way is to apply them to use them as like little symbols in like a scatter graph, for example. And we'll show you that one.
Well, let's have a look at how you can use these fonts. So here's your graph, and so it's the chance of snow on Christmas Day this year.
Yep.
Now I noticed Australia's not on there.
No, in the data set that I looked up, the chance of snow on Christmas Day in Australia was 0.
Yeah.
And so there are quite a few countries out there that are 0. It did list the capital cities, so I'm not sure if this is just specifically the whole country or just the capital city. It's possible it's just the capital city, in which case it's not going to snow here on Christmas Day,
No.
which I would expect, despite the hail. But you can see pretty much as expected, these places are almost all in Europe except for Canada. So they're all places you would expect it to snow. So these are just the top 20 countries where it's likely to snow. Russia is all the way up there at 62% roughly, which is
there's a good chance of snow there.
probably going to snow on Christmas Day, which you would expect. Russia is huge and covered in ice and snow most of the year, so you pretty much expect that. Belarus is just a little bit below Moscow. The country is just a little bit below where Moscow is in Russia. So again, you'd expect that. Estonia is just next to Belarus. Finland is, again, Finland has a border with Russia. So pretty much if you're associated with Russia, you're more likely to get snow on Christmas Day. If you're around that area, and then it just kind of starts to drop off a little bit.
Now we've got blue snowflakes here on a green background. This is the status scheme, the Christmas scheme that you've created.
This is my Christmas scheme with one little edit. My Christmas scheme has the default first color as red. I didn't think red snowflakes were terribly cool, so I changed them to blue.
Right.
But
And you made these snowflakes using a font.
Yes, so I downloaded a special font, and then I actually applied that font as a label, so we can see how I did this.
Let's see how you did this. So I'm interested to learn how to do this one.
So I loaded my Christmas data set, and you can see it here. I've got the country Albania, capital is Tirana. It's got a 0.4% chance of snow, so it's one of the lowest. Now I just want the snowflakes to be all the same. So I'm generating a variable called tag, which is just one, and then I'm creating a label, and this is where the font gets applied. So it's graph, double quotes, curly brace, the word font face, and then within double quotes, the name of the font. So all fonts have a name, colon, and then the letter that you want to apply from that font, and then you close everything off. I apply that label to my tag, and then you can see it there. That's what it looks like. And I'm running my scatter, so it's percent over country 51 to 70. So that's the top 20 countries where it's likely to snow. M symbol I is just saying I don't want you to show any symbol, and the reason for that is that we're showing the tag instead. So M label is tag, my tag variable. I'm adding the label size, so I'm making the snowflakes big. There's 20 countries, so I'm saying please do 20 points on the x-axis.
Yeah.
Add the value labels, so that means tell me what the countries are. I don't care about the numbers. Angle the country names 45 degrees. I don't want a X title or a Y title, and I'm just going to say snow on Christmas Day 2023 is my overall title. And that pops up, and you can see, so this is Stata's default graph scheme. It's got my blue, and you can see Russia there as the most likely to snow, and it's got my blue background. But I wanted to apply my Christmas scheme, and I can do that by just literally going in, apply new scheme. I labeled it Merry Christmas, so we can apply that. And there we go.
You have it.
And then I go, I don't really want red snowflakes. I could go back and rerun the graph, or I could just hop in here to the graph editor and open up my snowflakes and just change the color. So we go down and we find a nice blue color, medium blue. There we go. That'll do. Nice blue snowflakes.
And there we have.
And there we've got
your plot.
My graph. That's nice and easy, really.
Now, they're interesting graphs, and we see a lot of graphs, but we also see a lot of infographics, where if someone wants to convey a certain amount of information in a fancy looking graph.
Yeah, well, not even
really a graph, is it?
It's a pictogram. You're communicating information to people who might not necessarily be terribly interested in something that looks like a graph. But if it's got pictures in it, they're more likely to pull in the information that you're telling them. So that's what we call an infographic. This is an example from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So this is off their Twitter account. You can go onto their Twitter account and find it there if you'd like. And it's just telling us Santa's going to deliver gifts to 9.3 million households this Christmas. That's the only thing that it's telling us. Basically saying there's 9.3 million households. I guess it depends on how specific they really wanted to get.
And if their kids have been naughty or nice. If their kids have been naughty, maybe it's only 9.1 million households.
Yes.
Yeah, that Santa has to deliver to.
Yes, but regardless, it's got a nice little house. It's got a moon, so and Santa all in different colors.
Now we don't know what they created this in, do we?
No, I would assume they used some kind of graphics program rather than a statistics program, because it's not really statistics. It's a piece of information that you're kind of trying to communicate in a fun way. that will kind of draw people in.
Now, you can do this in Stata though.
Yes. So this is where our fonts come in again. So this is the one that I made. This is my little infographic. So Australia Post delivered 52 million parcels to households in December last year. And so that's a lot of parcels. They're expecting to be even more this year.
But this was completely created in Stata.
Yes, this is entirely within Stata, and I can show you how to do it. It's basically leveraging the graph editor functions and fonts as well. So the data set doesn't matter, and the graph that I'm creating doesn't matter because I'm immediately going to go into my graph editor. I think I'm that big. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to hide everything. So I'm going to get rid of the axes. See the axes go away. And I'm going to get rid of the plot region. So you go into advanced and I say hide plot region. And I've just got a white screen. This is awesome.
Wow, okay.
So now I can use the graph editor to do anything that I want on this background. So I'm going to put Australia Post delivered 52 million parcels to households in 2022. The reason that those two bits of text are separated into double quotes is because I want them on 2 lines. So if you've ever wanted to do titles on multiple lines, this is how you do it. Otherwise, it would have just gone all the way across off the page. And then I'm going to add a parcel. So this is the exact same thing that we did with the tag. So we're putting in the font face, which is Sunny Merry Christmas, which I downloaded off the internet, and then the letter attached to the symbol that I want. Close that off. And I'm just going to make the color redwood, which is one of my own custom colors. So you can see it there, and that's not quite big enough for my liking. So I'm just going to go in and make it bigger. There we go. And now I'm going to add my Christmas tree. So this is just using text to add particular font symbols rather than just text. So again, Sunny Merry Christmas is the name of the font. You can Google it. It's up there and it's free. V is what the Christmas tree is attached to, the letter the Christmas tree is attached to. I want my Christmas tree to be nice and big, and I want it to be green, obviously. I'm not in for all these white Christmas trees, it's green. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. You just kind of drag things around, position them. And there we go.
Now, you've done this in the graph editor, but we can actually reproduce this as well, can't we?
Yes, if I save as a .gph file, it's got all the edits in it right at the bottom of the .gph file. So I can go into that .gph file, pull out all the edits, pop that into a do file, put the gr_edit command in front of all those commands, and it will then, if you run that do file, it will recreate this graph.
Provided I've got that font.
Provided you've got that font. If you don't have that font, you'll just see a V and an X.
Right. But then I could choose a different font.
Yes.
Yeah. Now then, you can also draw images with functions in Stata. And so there's the two-way function command.
Yes. So this is just when you want to draw pretty much anything. You've got to work out what your functions are going to look like. But in this case, we drew a Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is kind of a combination between the two-way function command and the graph editor. So the two-way function command is what we use to make the tree, put the tinsel on the tree, and put a star on top. And then the baubles are all added using the graph editor.
Okay, so that's a lot of code.
Yeah, so you can see on the right, this is all the two-way functions that draw my tree. So it's a whole bunch. You've got one function and then your two pipes and another function, two pipes. So you can see I'm drawing a whole bunch of things, functions together to make my tree. So that's how you draw the triangles and the base and color it all in. And then on this side, you can see all the gedit commands. So I took all these plot region commands out of a .gph file after I'd finished my Christmas tree, and I can just pop them all in here as gr_edit, or I can just add baubles however I like. But these are basically just markers, and I'm changing. So for example, the default marker is always going to be a circle. I'm changing it to, well, in this case, I'm making it a magenta circle. This one, I'm turning it into a triangle. This one's a diamond, square. So I can change the shape and size of the symbols. And I've done all this in the graph editor and then just copied the commands out of the graph file.
And that way you've made it reproducible.
Yeah.
And then this is our Christmas tree.
It's my Christmas tree. So happy state of Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And this is our last webinar for the year. So we'll come back next year with some new ones. If you have any suggestions of webinars that you'd like, just let us know.
So Laura and I are going to take a little bit of time off over Christmas. So we'll be back in the new year. Our office will be closed for a little while, but we'll be back in the new year with new cool things to do. And you should join us on at the Oceania Stata Conference on the 1st of February. So registration for that is free, just like our webinars, and you'll get to hear a whole bunch of different stuff. We're getting ready soon to start to put together the agenda for the day, but looking forward to that. And Laura, all the best for Christmas. And same to everyone who's joined us today, all the best for Christmas. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2024 and helping you with loads of fun stuff in Stata.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.